Well, thank you, and welcome once again to Where Are They Now? And as we've been talking about, good friend, guy I've known since he was playing at Oklahoma, even before he got to Oklahoma State, Kevin Fowler. Of course, those who remember Oklahoma State baseball remember Kevin's name, and certainly the Fowler family for sure. So I thought it'd be a good idea to get Kevin in here. And, of course, he is he's the market president for Stillwater Simmons Bank. And, I didn't make the mistake. Hey, I got to ask you, just how many times did it take you, SMB? It wasn't SMB anymore. It's Simmons.
Well, we still answer to the old SMB.
Do you really?
We're a lot of the same team for sure, so we sure answer that SMB. But it's taken a while, a little transition. I'm not sure we'll ever fully be there.
I'm bad at that. It's just like putting the wrong year on the checks, after we get through there. But I'm getting better at Simmons Bank, so I got that right. And I do appreciate Simmons Bank's partner of mine on the old jukebox on Sunday night.
Proud partner.
We have
years.
We have good time on that. But we're going to talk sports here, and I appreciate you, Kevin, coming by. Let's just kind of start in general. You're a Stillwater guy. You grew up knee-high to the grasshopper there. You've been around baseball at Oklahoma State for a long, long time. What are your feelings now that Reynolds is over here and who knows how much longer, and now you got O'Brate?
You're right. For years, my dad and I went to the ball game, Chet Bryant being the coach, and certainly when Gary Ward came in, that created a new excitement with a bunch of new players that he brought in, and of course the success that they had was exciting for our family for sure. But and then getting to play, what an honor that was to get to play for Gary Ward in my hometown for the Cowboys, and actually Alley P Reynolds, I played in that first ball game that was opened up in 1982. That was my freshman year, and of course we were on a run at that time, so I know a lot of folks have fond feelings about Alley P Reynolds, and certainly I do, and my family does as well. But a couple trips to O'Brate, I think about the old Yankee Stadium, and I heard Josh talk about that. That they made that transition to the new Yankee Stadium, even after the house that Ruth built. Transitioning out of that, what a deal that how difficult that would be. But O'Brate Stadium. It certainly is an Alley P, but it has so much to offer, and it will elevate college baseball in Stillwater. Already has, as far as I'm concerned, even in a COVID environment, how much excitement there is out there. And so certainly having Josh there and Rob Walton there and Robin Ventura there and Matt Holliday there to help transition that is probably helping us as a community as well. But there's still a few folks that I still hear, like you mentioned, the old Stillwater National Bank or the old Alley P Reynolds. We're always going to miss that for sure. But it's the excitement that it's creating is going to see this through.
Being around here, and again, you might be one of the few people that I could have gone to start this conversation, because you were around Cowboy Baseball even before you knew Cowboy Baseball. You were a baseball guy, right. Stillwater guy. You grew up with the tradition. You grew up with the winning. You grew up with the trips to Omaha. And everybody I've talked, and I bring a lot of players on and have in the last half year in anticipation of the move, and we all agree, it's tough to move, but it's time to move on. We're glad we're moving on. We got a place like we have at O'Brate. That place is just eye-popping.
Well, for those that haven't toured, I finally got a tour. I did get a tour back in October.
Did you really? Okay.
Oh, when you walk in the place, it's electric. But the bones of it, just the training room, the locker room. The locker room. If you've been in the West End Zone or Cowboy basketball locker room, it has that feel. This is a special place to be. And the hitting cages, all that facility has to offer. I haven't been in the press box area at all, but wow, for recruiting purposes, it's certainly going to change the game for us as well. So not that we weren't good already, and we're going to be good and continue to be good, but it will pay dividends. There's no way it won't for a recruit to see that. I was a Stillwater kid. Alley P Reynolds was brand new. As a matter of fact, we opened it up in 1982. My senior year in high school was 1981.
Mm-hmm.
They did play a few games there. You might remember in 1981 without seats. You had to sit on the concrete floor, if you will, as a fan. They played some ball games at Couch Park.
That is correct.
The Cowboys did that year because they weren't actually ready to play home games at Alley P. But actually opened up in 1982. So I was coming to OSU. I was thrilled to be on the list of recruits. But for a kid to pull like we need to do if we're going to be a national powerhouse, you might remember, Tom, in those days we recruited pitching from Northeast.
Yes, sir.
Recruiting position players from warm weather states like Arizona and California. If you kind of look down at the roster, those were California kids. A lot of those big time Robin Ventura, Pete Incaviglia were California kids. But that's what we did in those days. Not that you can't recruit Oklahoma talent and be really good, but just a numbers game at that point in time. You've got to recruit nationwide to be with the best of the best, like we were in the 80s. And Josh and Rob and Robin and Matt are going to get us back there for sure.
We're kind of reminiscing a bit here with Kevin Fowler, but you were part of that first game, and Missouri was not nice to us in that first game. I mean, they came in and beat us.
In 1981, probably.
Yes. That first game when
I
it
do
was a
remember
full-blown
that.
stadium.
I do remember that.
And I've told this story a million times. That infuriated Ward so much
that we lost
to Missouri. That I think we went on to beat Missouri like 26 out of the next 28 times.
You know, Tom, I'm not sure. I was thinking along those lines. I certainly was when we opened up last week with the University of Little Rock. That we needed to win that first game and all the first and that kind of thing. But I had forgotten that we lost that. That was my senior year in high school, so I wasn't on the field.
Right.
I was on the field the next year, but I'd forgotten we lost. I knew Missouri brought it to us. I think they had Phil Bradley and some of those.
Yeah, that's when Gene McCarter was the head coach.
Yes.
I mean, and Gary liked McCarter. I mean, but it infuriated him so much they won that game that every time we play Missouri.
To your point, we rolled them for years after that.
Yeah.
There was probably an extra motivation there, wasn't there?
There was, and they had good players. It wasn't they were just the dregs of the earth.
Thing. You're right. They were competitive. It was us, Nebraska, OU, and Mizzou is usually who had a really legitimate chance to win the Big 8 conference. Mizzou was good, but we'd sweep them 4-game series, you know.
That's correct.
Consistently for years.
And it had to do with that infuriated approach that Gary Ward had.
He had magic about him, that's for
sure. He did.
Still
you
does.
Played for him. You understood that. Big 8, you know, you kind of mentioned this. We're going to kind of mess around and talk about a lot of different things here. Big 8, you had Nebraska, you know, and those guys. Sanders was the coach there. You had Missouri. Oklahoma was always a thorn. I mean, with Seymour down there. How do you assess the Big 12 competition versus what you went through as a young guy?
Well, it's elevated for sure. You bring the Texas schools in, it makes a difference then. It was the Big 7 those days. Colorado had just stopped playing baseball.
That's correct.
So we didn't travel to Colorado. So you travel to those the cold weather states. I mean, think about Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa. Those they weren't as competitive as in baseball for sure. But we certainly Wichita State was though. So I mean, not they were in the Big 8 conference, but certainly competitive. But I think the pitching depth that you see at TCU and the quality of play at Texas Tech and bringing Texas in, that was probably our number one rival in the day. I think it was probably between us, them, and the Stanford, who the best program was in the 80s, I would say. So Texas was certainly on top of the game then. But, yeah, it certainly elevated things and brought a lot of excitement into it. I certainly do miss playing the Nebraskas of the world and Missouri in all sports, but that was always a competitive situation too.
You are such a community minded individual, and your bank does the same thing. You're involved in so many community activities promoting Stillwater and Payne County for that matter. How do you see Old Bridge Stadium? How do you see Cowboy Baseball as part of that thing that excites people and moves this community feeling forward?
Well, the dream of Mike Holder and the athletic department to create that master plan out north, that's an economic driver for our community for sure. The excitement that to build that stadium, and if you ever been to Baum Stadium in Arkansas and watch a home game there, or some of the Southeastern Conference facilities, not that we want to be them, but at the same time the energy that it creates and that's dollars and cents for our community. Absolutely is for people to consider tailgating at a OSU Cowboy baseball game, and that's going to be huge for us to bring folks in. From a baseball guy, very exciting. From a Stillwater guy, from an economic development position, very, very exciting to see that grow. You mentioned community-wise, our bank parks cars for home football games at 3rd and Main, and we donate that money to United Way. It's amazing that $20,000 a year we create for United Way just by parking home football games. And so just that one little slice, how much that means to the community, and we didn't have it this year. Oklahoma State athletics and Oklahoma State in general is the driver for our community.
Nothing's in stone, obviously, but it appears that we're all kind of headed in this direction, knocking on wood, where maybe football and basketball and all our events here in Stillwater will be full bore, full attendance. Now, nothing's been official on that, but it seems like we're drifting in that direction. The economic impact in this town, it goes up, doesn't it? A bunch.
Just immeasurable. Just heads in beds. I mean, that makes a difference there for sure. And just the tone of the community. I'm just so glad to see the traffic's kind of picked up this week. It feels like. So you can feel that momentum building. You can see that that's a realistic goal to have a stadium full, if not this fall, hopefully this fall, certainly in 2022. We survived it, if you will. We weathered the storm in 2020, but boy, I sure wouldn't want to see that happen again in 2021 or going forward.
Hopscotch again over to O'Bray. Envision, and again, people who are not able to go probably can't make this visual work out for them, but 4,000 in there, 6,000, 8,000 in that stadium. I mean, you're talking about the most exciting stadium I have ever been to. Well, there's two of them. Mississippi State back in the day. We played regionals down there. But you mentioned the Arkansas Stadium. Mm-hmm. I mean, they call the Hogs. It is an electric atmosphere. Can you imagine what it would be if we get 8,000?
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. My son's high school baseball team, his junior year, their spring trip was in Arkansas, and we were there playing baseball in March, and just the community in that Fayetteville, Rogers area, they were in tune to what the Hog baseball was doing. But it was almost like a big league game that was going on. Everybody knew the score. Everybody knew what was going on. I can see us embracing Oklahoma State baseball again that way.
Well, we've had it before. I mean, long story short, when we get back again, hoping this pandemic is in a rearview mirror. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't, but I think we're heading in the right direction. Going back to you, growing up, foregone conclusion you were going to Oklahoma State, foregone conclusion you're going to play baseball here?
Yeah, I mean, I was a 7th-round draft pick out of high school, so that's in these days and times you would sign because the money was such where you would certainly sign. But I was projected a 3rd to 8th rounder, and certainly came in in that range for sure. If I'd been on the 3rd, 4th round or so, that might have been something where that would have changed the dynamics of things for sure. But I was open to looking around. I think I just because it was fun. Had a lot of recruiting attention, but no, in the end, I knew Coach Ward. I played ball with his son, Rocky, growing up. Certainly knew Coach Holliday. Matt and Josh were just still young guys then, maybe 5, 6, and 1 years run around for sure, but sure knew Coach Holliday. And, of course, Dave Holliday was on that staff, so couldn't beat that. And with the new stadium, they just finished runner-up to Arizona State in 1981, my senior year in high school. So I say all that to say, the recruiting process was fun. The draft was fun, but in the back of my mind, it was about getting on at Alley P Reynolds and playing baseball for Coach Ward. Was
there another school that might have just edged its way in and maybe for a brief time you thought, I might go there, or was that not right?
I won't say the school. Actually, I liked Coach Seymour and Coach Bollinger there. Those guys.
Right.
And they had a new stadium too, Mitchell Park. But Jackie Shipp had just left Stillwater. He was a linebacker on our football team for OU, and that wasn't it. But I did like the coaching staff there early on. I hope I don't get tomatoes thrown at me next time I'm out. But I did. So it was kind of down to that. They were both. But in my mind it was Oklahoma State and Coach Ward and Coach Holliday.
And what a legacy those guys left. We consistently bring that up during this time of year. Have Tom on, have Gary on, and. I had Jimmy Iflin on last week.
I listened to that.
Yeah. And everybody, and I don't think we can hammer this home enough. And it sounds so short-sighted because every one of these ex-players back in those days would tell me there was only one goal. When we started working out, we started playing junior college teams when you didn't have to count them against your allotment of games. We played, fall baseball. The goal was to get to Omaha. And if we didn't get there, there was a huge sense that the year was not what it turned out to be. It wasn't what we wanted it to be. Did you say, being in Stillwater, you sensed that before you ever came here because we went. But as a player, did you feel that?
Oh, Tom, I mean, first of all, awesome to play for those guys and get to play in front of your home field. I played in 4 College World Series, so we never didn't make it, and I got to start and play in each one of those World Series. So it was but no question about it. The leadership on the team when I first got on the squad, it was guys like Stan Bond, Steve Rioter, Jim Traber. I mean, there was no way we weren't getting to Omaha, and we were talent depleted that second year after the 1981 team. We lost a lot of talent, and we weren't projected to go back, but there was no doubt in those guys' minds that we were going to go back to Omaha. We did it that year, we did it the next year, we did it the next year, the next year. And well, it was my turn to be a leader in 1985, and Randy Whistler and Mike Day, that was kind of the group that was, it wasn't screamed about every day about Omaha. I don't know if you've heard from that from Mifflin and those guys, but it was understood that was certainly always the goal. And so, in baseball, there's no guarantee, but we felt like that we had a real good shot of getting there every year. I say that because the best squad I ever saw for Oklahoma State Cowboys was a squad in 1988, and that was Monty Ferris and Robin Ventura, and Mifflin was on that squad as well, and they didn't make it. That was the first time in 7 years the Cowboys didn't make the College World Series, and probably our best team ever. So there was no guarantee. We understood that going into it, but there was certainly a confidence when we walked on the field, and it started with number 20 in that third base side dugout that we were going to be competitive. We weren't going to be scared, and we were going to try to intimidate and win the ball game in a lot of different ways.
Kind of gentler approach these days in all of college athletics, in my opinion. Rules make it that way. Maybe not as aggressive in nature as we're using baseball as an example. When you played and Gary was here, there was an intimidation factor. There was a step on the field, and you let them know before the first pitch is ever thrown, they're not going to win this game. They're not going to win this series. The intensity level's different. But as we were talking before, times change, and I guess I'm not very good at changing with times, but it does seem to be, it doesn't mean that you don't want to win in this day and age. You just go about it a little different way.
I agree. I'm with you, Tom. I miss it. I miss the hard baseball, old school style, if you will. But I get it, too. There was probably no reason for us not to shake hands after the game, that kind of thing. I mean, we can all kind of go out to dinner afterwards, I think. But that wasn't, there was no way we would do that back in the day for sure. But I can see the positives of it as well. I can see the rules in place that help bring a little bit of civility to the ball field as well. So I can see the positives. It was a Wild West back in those days as far as how much time we were on the field,
how many games you played.
Yeah. I listened to this morning. I think it was the Steve Daniels show that they were talking about the Cowboys being 7-0, and it's tied for the best start in Josh Holliday's career. And I was actually with my wife. We were driving at the time this morning, and I said to her, we were never 7-0 in those glory days of Oklahoma State baseball because we went on the road for the first 20 games and went to warm weather states like Florida and California looking for. We were lucky to get back at 500. Quite honestly, oftentimes we didn't get back. We were 10-12 or 12-10, something like that, and then rip off 40 or 50 out of 55 kind of stuff is what would happen every year. But we took our lumps early on, and I think that was the formula to get to Omaha for Coach Ward and Coach Holliday. Schedule those tough games against Cal State Fullerton on the road or University of Florida on the road or whoever that was on the road early on to take our lumps.
Yeah, you guys, you never did shy away from competition at all, for sure. And the feeling was, is you just kind of put it in a capsule. Let's go play good teams. If we take our lumps, so be it. We're going to gain more than just bringing in a directional school and beating them 25-1. You don't get a whole lot out of that. You know what I yearn for, though, is, and I think we'll get it here. once the pandemic eases and we can bring crowds in. Can you imagine a regional at a rate now?
I can't. Well,
you can
looking
imagine.
Forward to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Looking forward as my daughter and I went to the game on Sunday, and I mentioned that to her that this would be awesome if we had when we soon have regionals here and super regional for that matter.
Yeah.
What that's going to look like. And I meant back to Josh and Rob on the scheduling side. I mean, they scheduled Vanderbilt at home,
Sure.
coming up here in a few weeks, so they didn't shy away from anybody either. I think they've got that same mindset. It's just a different world as far as traveling is concerned and what you can and can't do. In those days, we were gone for 20 straight days. Spring break was in there, but there was about a week and a half of school we were gone, and there wasn't. You didn't take your courses on the computer in those days, so you just couldn't do that. Do what we did then now because of the rules that are in place. So
You look back on it, and everybody likes to look back, and maybe you in your mind you're a better player than you were. But I tell you guys when I have you on, you can't buffalo me because I saw you. I mean, I saw you with my own eyes. But the foundation was built, and I asked if you heard me ask Jimmy about this. Everybody who has played, in my opinion, in this program, and you can go back to Chet if you want. You can go back that far. And he had teams, that went to Omaha back in the 50s, I guess it would be, back at University Park. You all have a part in kind of building the foundation for what we've got now.
right.
Do you feel the investment yourself personally? You feel like wasn't a huge part maybe, but I had a little bit to do with where we are now?
I do, Tom. I certainly do. I think especially when I hear people talk about the days in the 80s of Oklahoma State going to the College World Series consistently, that's what we're working toward again. That's what we did. That's what we built. That's the goal now. And I tell you what, Josh and Rob did a really good job of transcending the players from the past to today and kind of talk about the history of Oklahoma State baseball and what was built over time and give the old guys, if you will, credit the guys that played early on, even before myself, for sure. So I certainly feel invested in the program and have some pride in the contribution, yes.
As you look back, as we get ready to wrap this up, pro ball was everybody's goal, back in the day, and it still is now to some, not everybody's, but a good portion. Anybody who puts on some cleats and has a glove, and we're all this way, we all envision themselves playing for somebody, right? In your case, the Cardinals there. But pro ball, did it not work out like you wanted it to, or were you able to step away from it and say, okay, I'm going to do something else?
It worked out not the way I expected it going in, quite honestly. You remember my career, Tom.
Right.
I had a really good freshman year, started as a freshman. Just some circumstances happened where I got into the lineup and stuck. And then not so, my career kind of only hit against left-handers my sophomore and junior year, and then had a really good senior year again. For me, it evolved over time that wasn't my future.
Right.
I could see really good guys like a Gary Green. If those of you guys remember Gary Green, he would come back and he would say, Gary was better. He was the slickest shortstop I ever saw, short of Ozzie Smith, I guess. But he would say, I'm not going to make it. That's not my future. I could feel that I wasn't that level. And if you had doubts like that, you weren't going to make it. There were guys on the club like Doug DeCenzo. I see his picture on the wall here that you just couldn't tell him. If you got him out, it was an accident.
Yeah,
Davidic was the same way. If you got those guys that were accident, though they were going to make it, they had the passion to work through it. I was ready to move on. I liked. My goal, my family's goal, my dad and mom's goal was to get to Stillwater because of the community that was, the university, all that it offered, and I was ready to kind of turn the page and do that as well. My wife and I soon thereafter got married, and I started my career here. So it worked out the way well for us. It wasn't what I thought going into college, as I was a high draft choice, but it just didn't materialize for me.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting around to. There comes a day in everybody's career where you look in the mirror and you say, all right, I'm deciding right now. I'm either going to continue or I'm going to do something else. But you seem to handle that part well.
I didn't see myself, because once you commit yourself to to pro baseball, you need to give it 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
you really
yeah,
do,
yeah.
and you'll have a spot if you, at least in those days, that they're kind of winding that down a little bit or thinning the opportunities. But so you really need to give it 3 or 4 years. So was I really going to be 26 or 27 and then try to start my banking career at that point in time? So that's the decision I made, a conscious decision. But I mean, the talent level I could tell was I would need to have really gotten fortunate to make it in baseball. The talent level had elevated from high school to college significantly, and then again I jumped to pro ball.
All right, before we turn you loose, it's fair. Are you working harder now at Simmons Bank? Are you working less? Are you playing more golf? What are you doing? And I'm talking as a customer because you got some of my money in your bank.
I've got a great team. I don't play any golf at all, but I think that was all about when I got the opportunity. It's all about who you get to work with. I mean, that's what I told my son, who just came out of college a couple years ago, that really, I mean, once you find something you like, then find a team you really like to work with, and that's where I am now. So blessed to have the people around me. We all work really hard, but yeah, I'm not the hardest working person in that team for sure.
And you're being kind. I mean, you're throwing Jonesy into this thing, which is hard to do, right? I mean, we're broad brushing this thing and saying Jonesy's a hard worker, right?
Well, we're both kind of at the same level, watching other people work really hard.
At least you admit that, though. Hey, I appreciate you coming down. We can go on forever on this reminiscent thing, but we like to touch base from time to time, and it is current. And man, this old break thing's got us all excited. No question. And this team
awesome.
Should get you excited, no doubt. This team's loaded.
They are loaded, and they're deep, and they know how to play the game, and they get the responsibility they have with those state on their hat. So exciting to see where we get to go.
Well, I appreciate you coming down. I'll make my next $1 million donation here in a little bit to the bank. I'll bring it in there.
We're counting them. We got it on the shelf for you back in the back.
I'll come upstairs and hand it to you in the corner office, so you'll be happy when I come in there. Say hello to the gang back there. And again, I so much appreciate you guys being with me on the Sunday night show as well.
You bet. We appreciate you too, Tom.
We have a good
time.
Keep
it rolling.
And we'll do that. I'll try to. Every day is a challenge, but I'm able to get through it. Hey, appreciate Kevin Fowler coming in. That'll do it for Where Are They Now?